So let's talk about dashboards. So dashboards in Monday are super useful and sometimes they're underutilized when it comes to managing workflows and structuring work inside your account. So a typical approach for the utilization of a dashboard, is to aggregate data across different boards to visually kind of represent your work and things that are happening. You might want to pull out reports and graph things that are happening, and that's a really common way to use dashboards, and it's super useful, super powerful. What can happen is that some people underutilize dashboards in the different ways that they can be integrated into a workflow, and simply just rely on those those generic kind of dashboard types to visualize the data. So what I want to show you today is just a different way to think about using dashboards, and potentially how you could incorporate that into the structure of your account or different teams or different functions in your business. And hopefully you'll learn something new about how to take those dashboards and integrate it into what you're currently doing. So how I like to think about dashboards initially is how that it can simplify some of the cross-functional or sections of work that get done across a typical organization when you set up your Monday account. So normally what people will do is they'll set up a whole bunch of different boards, and then they'll start kind of laying out how the different teams can, collaborate across those boards. This is where mirroring, which we'll talk about in some other videos, is really useful and powerful. But another option is obviously utilizing dashboards. So we'll run through a quick example here. If I go through and I just click this new dashboard, and I'm going to call it example 1, and I'm going to create that dashboard. So obviously straight off the bat you can choose which boards are connected to this. So let's just assume in this example that we've got some generic boards. So I've got one here, it's grouped by different functions in my business, and maybe this is a big project that each function in the business needs to collaborate on to achieve a particular outcome. In another example, maybe we've got BAU stuff, it's all things that always happen inside our business, and it's kind of ad hoc, or it might be recurring or repeating. You can see here in these two different examples, we're identifying the team here. In this example where it's grouped by status, we're showing the different team in a column there. In this example, we've grouped the work by team here instead of using a column. So there's different ways you can do that depending on the structure of the board and the different ways that the teams want to manage that. But here's just two examples to demonstrate how we utilize this dashboard. So let's assume, for example, the marketing team, they have their own board, they run their own functions or ad hoc tasks through that. They've got their own structure. Obviously in this example, if we wanted to pull data from this board into their board that they use for their primary work, it would be possible with mirroring. I guess some of the complexities around that, which we'll talk about when you look at videos related to mirroring, are the creation and duplication of items and having dual items and the management of that. So this is where a dashboard can come in super handy. So let's say I've got two boards here that, as the marketing team, we have activities and tasks related to that need to be completed. What I can do is create that dashboard, which I've done here, and I can link those boards. Selecting here, and I'm just going to select these two boards here and click done. So now my next step is to create a widget. So what I want to do is click add widget, and I want to go to the widget center, and one of the highly underutilized widgets is the table widget. So what's really great about this, once I select it, is that what I can do is pull in the data across multiple boards. So you can see here I've got groups example 1, which is this board here. I've got groups example 2, which is this board here. So what I can do now is that I can then filter this. So I might want to rename it marketing tasks by big project. So all I'm saying here is that I've got a bunch of stuff that's outside our normal daily ad hoc work or our recurring work that's happening within our business for that function, and I want a separate view related to just activities related to these particular boards, and I don't want to pull them into our primary board that we work in. Obviously I don't want to see things for finance and HR and operations. So what I'm going to do here on this first board here, so you can see what I've done, I'll click this filter button here, and when I click that, it gives me some options. You'll notice that the first thing here is a drop down where you're able to select the filters for each board. So for the first one, what I want to do is just filter by marketing, and I'm going to save that. When I go to board 2, what I want to do is I want to filter it by the team that's set here, not the group. So I'm going to set that one as marketing, and I'm going to save that. So when I go back now to my table view, what I'm doing now is I'm pulling in the data from those multiple boards into a single view. I can see here now that I've got the information that I want just related to us as the marketing team, and I can make updates on these items here, which will automatically be represented in the board. So you can see that updated there. What that does is gives me a single location to manage that as a marketer or as a marketing team, and it's going to affect obviously that single board over there where other teams may be working, or there might be a project manager managing that project. If you're in a smaller organization, you can see how this could be really useful to segment or create different views based on people in your organization as well. So there's different ways you can utilize the dashboard and the table widget to be really powerful and useful. Again, you can potentially see that, because you've got a cross-functional board with different people doing different things, potentially you don't want to see all the columns in there that are related to those other organizations or those other functions. So what we can do is click the 3 dots up here, click settings, and then I can identify what columns do I want to show. Maybe I want to turn particular ones off for one board and turn something off for another board. Once we do that, you can save that, and then we've got the view that we want. Importantly, you're not limited at this point. You might want to create multiple table widgets. So you might have multiple different types of boards that you want to connect. And again, you can obviously extend this dashboard out to be really powerful in terms of what functionality you could add underneath it. Do you want to add some charts? Do you want to add some other data? So they can give you a real singular view on what's happening across, cross-functional or other boards that aren't related to your primary work. So that's where dashboards can be really useful from a workflow perspective, being able to integrate it into the things that you're doing. If you critically think about, what views do I need? How do I need to make it simple for my team? And how can I utilize the dashboard to achieve that? So another way that we can use dashboards, if I create a new one here and I call it example 2, is when we look at things like it might be briefing work in or creating form requests, especially when you're a large organization, even if you're small and you're sending things to different team members and you want to track what's happening with those requests, but you don't necessarily need access to that board and you don't need to access everything that's happening. A dashboard can be really useful in that way to just, one, get the request in a central location for yourself, and 2, to be able to track and monitor the status of that work. So in this example, let's assume that we create another table widget. So we go here and we go widgets and we find table, and maybe I'll link the other one as well. We've got those 2 boards linked there, and I'll create that like that and just pull that out in that same way. So I won't put any filters in here, but let's just say for this example that we've got requests that need to be sent into this particular board. And us as the requester typically just want to see that our request has landed, and 2, that we can then track it through those stages, so I can regularly reference this dashboard to say, okay, well, where's my particular item at that I've requested? So a simple way to do this, if we look at one of these boards here, let's look at example 2. Maybe it's got a form attached to it, and that form is utilized to kind of submit requests or items or, initiation of workflow into this particular board and kick things off. In this dashboard, I can add a widget. Let's go here and let's type in, see if we can find it. We've got, let's see what we can find here to do what we want. So we've got a bunch of different widgets that we can choose from. And sometimes you'll need to work through and see what you can utilize and what you can't to achieve the different things that you want. So here we go, we've got to embed everything. This is typically where we can embed, anything from YouTube to forms to anything else that can be useful that we want to use within our workflows. So you can see here, maybe I'll drag this up the top here. I'll make it a bit bigger. And here what we want to do is it's asking us to add some information. And what I'm doing in this example is I'm going to embed a form so that's attached to this board. So I'm going to go back to example 2, find the form here, and I'm going to click share. What that's going to do, it's going to give me an embed code there. So that all that embed code does is create a live view of that form. So I'm going to click copy there. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, click this add a site button, and then I'm going to paste this here. You can see what will come up is ideally that form there, where we can then utilize that to. So once we embed this form here, it'll show up inside this view, and that means that we can create the request live in this dashboard. We can then track it through its status or where it's within these boards, and we can filter it based on the views that we want. And that could be useful for a team that just doesn't need full access to the board, but they want to come in, they want to initiate requests, they want to see where it's at and track it through particular stages. And this can be really useful from a workflow perspective as a starting point, or even a midway point when work gets to a certain stage and needs to go to another team or another function or someone else inside a smaller organization, where you can initiate that request easily. That's really useful in terms of how to utilize that dashboard in different ways, as opposed to just a visual representation of information. So we've got 2 examples there. Straight off the bat, we've got a way that we can create different views for different teams by aggregating information across multiple boards and segmenting it into a single view. We've also got the initiation of requests, potentially by embedding a form that's connected to another board. We can then initiate the request. We can also monitor the status of it in a single view, and that can be really powerful from a workflow perspective. The final thing that we cover is kind of like, capacity. Capacity can be really useful from a dashboard perspective. It can be underutilized where people really don't know how to tie context to the capacity. So let's go through and create another dashboard. We'll call it example 3. And this is really where if we let's connect these 2 boards, and let's look at our workload widget. Obviously we don't have all the particular metrics in our workload widget, and we've got other videos covering how to set up workload specifically. All we're looking at here is the potential use of a dashboard and aligning its context within your workflows and different ways you can manage things. So in this example here, obviously we've got workload. This can help us when we're looking at our team's capacity, track their particular effort or the hours that they're spending on activities or tasks or items. And we can look at it, within different views, whether it's weeks, month, or days. So this can help, for future planning. This can help with looking at where our team's workload is, if we're doing a weekly whip or a stand-up. It can also help us reallocate items to particular members of the team. And so what's really important is that we add context to that workload. So it may be that we again go back to our widget center. We look at the table view, which is, as you can realize, probably one of my favorites in terms of dashboards. And what we can do is we can utilize this dashboard, where we've got our workload here. Maybe we make this a bit smaller in terms of this view, and we've got the boards that are connected to this workload view. So what that means is that when we're having the moments where we're looking at capacity across the team and we need to reallocate or we need to push things out, being able to have those boards living in that view can provide that context. So what that enables me to do is go through and look at, this person may be over capacity or under capacity. I can then drop down to my particular board. I might want to filter it by that particular person. Let's say we filter it like that, and we don't have to save it at this point. Maybe we just want to do this live filtering as we go. So we can pull that out and we can see, well, here's all these items that are related to this unassigned person here. And we can then readjust in terms of who this gets assigned to. So then might go to me, for example. And this can, on the fly, reallocate the workload that we've established. So what we're doing is we're adding context to our dashboard, especially from a workflow perspective. So if we've got the right structure set up, we can utilize our dashboards really effectively to take advantage of the different features that are available in Monday that allow us to add context to what we're doing. So workload's super powerful. Just take it that little bit further, especially in your dashboard views, to add the boards in that make sense to reallocate that workload. So you can on the fly look at, how do we readjust someone who's over capacity, under capacity? How do we push timelines out? All that can be done within a single view if you utilize dashboards effectively. And that's really how you can supercharge your workflow with dashboards. And there's just 3 simple examples of things that you could implement straight away. Example 1, remember, we had the aggregation of different boards into a single view using the table widget. And that was where, for a particular function or team, if we're working across multiple boards, different things happening in our workspace, we can pair that back into a single view for ourselves to really reduce overwhelm. Example 2, we had where we have our form that's going to get embedded here, connected to a board, so we can initiate requests, whether it's the start of the workflow or in the middle or the end. We can also then track what's happening with those requests because we don't need particular access to the board to manage it, but we have a workflow component that we want to be in control of, and we want views on what's happening when we've initiated or created requests in that view. We've then got example 3 where we utilize our workload. So we've got our widget for our workload, helps us see capacity across the team. We've also then got the boards that are relevant to that workload connected in that view. So by adding that context, we can make changes dynamically on the fly. We can filter, we can push things out in that board without having to jump between different things. So hopefully all that stuff that has helped around the utilization of dashboards, and there's some things that you can start incorporating into your workflow. So watch along in our other videos to learn some more tips about how you can maximize your use of Monday.com.